Hey, moneymakers, I'm Kalilah Reynolds, and welcome to another episode of Taking Stock Live. We're bringing you all the latest business news and telling you how it will affect you and your money. So a lot of things to talk about tonight. Michelle Chong, the long-standing CEO and founder of HoneyBun, is stepping aside, handing over the reins. We're going to hear from her about her legacy and what's next for the company. Also, March inflation numbers are out. We've got the latest, and Express Catering's Q3 results are out. We're going to hear all about it during the Analysts. But first, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and let me know in the chat what part of Jamaica or what part of the world you are joining us from. I love to see our viewers all over the world. We've got viewers in different area codes. Yes, guess what? I just finished recording like 50 modules of the updated Investing for Beginners course. It was a lot. So now I'm tired properly, but I'm also energized because I love doing this show and we have a lot to talk about. So yeah, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Let me know where you're joining us from. And we've got a great show lined up for you tonight. Here's a look at what's coming up, followed by what's hot in business. On this episode of Taking Stock, Michelle Chong is hanging up her apron as CEO of Honey Bun. What's next for the business mogul and her Honey Bun? We'll discuss the company's plans for the future with CEO Michelle Chong. And the analysts weigh in on the latest market developments. Express Catering's third quarter results are out. How did they perform? We'll discuss.
But first, here's What's Hot, brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart.
Pulse Investment says it's in transition mode as the company recovers from the sudden loss of founder Kingsley Cooper. Cooper passed away in June 2024. The company announced last week that Romay Gordon has resigned as co-managing director and company secretary effective March 31, 2025. However, she will remain as a company director. Kingsley's daughter, Safia Cooper, is now the sole managing director. Pulse said it has brought in a group of high-level consultants to help chart the path forward. Cooper said her father's passing has left a gap in Pulse's operations. She asked shareholders for understanding as the company moves forward. The National Insurance Fund has purchased a 4% stake in Barita Investments, becoming its third largest shareholder. The NIF invests money into assets like equities and real estate to generate a return to pay NIS benefits. The NIF spent almost $4 billion for an additional 4% stake in Barita. According to the NIF's unaudited financials for the 2023-24 fiscal year, the fund generated income of roughly $12 billion. Two of Italy's biggest fashion houses are coming together after the Prada Group announced a deal to purchase Versace last week. The deal reportedly cost 1.25 billion euros. That's about 1.4 billion US dollars. Versace was founded in 1978 by the late Gianni Versace. It's been owned by Capri Holdings since 2018. Capri also owns Michael Kors and Jimmy Choo. The company's been under pressure to sell Versace to reduce its debt. According to reports, the original sale price was expected to be about 1.4 billion euros, but Prada was able to negotiate a discount because recent market turmoil and trade uncertainty has hit the retail industry particularly hard. The U.S. government says smartphones, computers, and some other electronic devices will be exempt from tariffs, including the 145% import tax imposed on Chinese goods. The move follows backlash from U.S. tech companies, which produce many of their products in China. U.S. President Donald Trump announced a 10% global tariffs on most countries, which sent global markets spiraling. Markets recovered last week after Trump announced a 90-day pause on the tariffs. Guess what? You don't need to be rich in order to start investing. As a matter of fact, investing is how you get rich. You can start with as little as 1,000 Jamaican dollars at some firms, like this security guard that I met a few months ago. That's how much you started with?
1,000.
1,000.
Yeah. That's a good thing to do it still, to learn more.
And you happy with it so far?
Yes.
Check out my Investing for Beginners course. Go to investingforbeginnersja.com to get started. Let's get this money. Welcome back. Let me see who we have in the house. Let me try to big up all our viewers, all our early viewers especially. David Gray was the first one to comment, who says, "What's up tonight?" Desmond giving a LOL. Got Garfield saying good night. Dwight Jackson checking in from Spanish Town. Mount Felix Industries, they're in Mandeville. Unbothered checking in on a rainy night. Is it raining? Yeah, I do hear rain. I didn't realize. I've been locked up in the studio for several hours, so I don't even know what's going on outside. Learn, Grow, Invest is wishing everyone a happy Easter. Indeed, I should let you know that there will be no taking stock next week. We always take a break around Easter time, a 1-week break, and we take 2 weeks off around Christmas. So there will be no taking stock next week. We will be back here on the 29th. So no taking stock next week, Tuesday. Enjoy your Easter weekend, and we'll be back on the 29th. So yeah, happy Easter. Enjoy your holidays. Ingrid is checking in from Bull Bay, St. Andrew. We got Dalton in the Cayman Islands. We have Chris from Panama City. Ian is in Toronto. Gibbon is in St. Lucia at Labori Beach. We got Orlando in Grange Hill. Roger in Philly. Orville in Spanish Town. Who else? Owain is in Waldeston, Manchester. Simple Knowledge is in Cayman. Humble Boss is telling people to get the money. He's checking in from Negril. And yeah, we have quite a few more people as well. Big up yourself wherever you are, whatever part of Jamaica or whatever part of the world. Love to see the viewers joining us each and every week. So who do we have this week? This week we are talking about Honey Bun because it is a Jamaican staple. And let me know in the chat what is your favorite Honey Bun product. And the company is now ushering or about to usher in a new era as their longtime CEO, Michelle Chong, one of my favorite Jamaican company leaders, is stepping aside. She is retiring after earning her well-deserved retirement. And we want to know what she plans to do next and what's next in this new era for the company. So let's welcome HoneyBun CEO Michelle Chong back to Taking Stock. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Kalilah. How are you?
I am great, but I should really ask, how are you?
I am great. I'm great.
Are you counting down the days?
No. You don't really end. There's not a day when you retire, when you pack up your things and go through the door. No, it doesn't work like that.
Especially as a family-run business.
That's
they will
correct.
always call mommy.
Right. And
so
it's
what
my
made you
son
decide?
that's
What made you
taking over.
decide to retire?
Well, Kalilah, I have had that plan in my mind for quite some time, and through our family council and our discussions with our 4 children, we've kind of known that this would happen one day. And so last year I made my son deputy CEO, mainly because we want to transition it. So we have been transitioning it. I've been giving him more and more responsibilities. But Daniel, who is the deputy CEO now, he will become the CEO. But right now he's finishing up working on an expansion project for HoneyBun as an engineer. So once that is done, then we will finish the transition, and Michelle Chong will not be CEO anymore.
So you don't have a set date as your last day just yet?
No, we don't have to.
Okay.
It can be an eased in transition, but I suspect it's going to be within the next 2 months because the expansion project is coming to a close now.
Tell
So
us about that project. So it's a new factory that you're working on. Where is
it's
it?
a new factory in Angels in Spanish Town, and we will be moving one of our production lines into that factory. That factory is maybe just a little bit bigger than our current factory, but it will, and the current factory has 5 lines running there. So we're moving one of our biggest lines out to the new factory, and the other lines, about 3 lines to the new factory, and the other lines will be able to expand in that same space. So we're going to get factory space for a couple of our lines, and the existing facility we will continue to operate there the remainder of lines, production lines.
That's the facility on Retirement Road.
That's correct.
So
Retirement Crescent.
Retirement Crescent. So you're
Yes.
expecting to be able to start production in the new factory in about 2 months.
Less than 2 months. We were proposing to move in by the first week this month, but things happen with construction. And so we're probably going to properly start to move in. They just finished the floors, and the floors are one of the last things. So we'll start to move in over the course of the next few weeks.
I feel like we should have invited Danielle on the show beside you, so that we could get to meet the new HoneyBun CEO, but we'll have to invite him another time and hear about, his vision for the company. But in talking to your son, and since we said there's been this transition period and you are still going to be involved, do you have different ideas of what the future of HoneyBun should look like? Because you're the old school, he's the new school, the young gun coming in. Are there things that he wants to do differently from how you do things now?
I think that it has always been so meshed, that we share a lot of the same ideas. He's younger though, and he has a younger mind in terms of his engineering studies and skills, and he's far more into technology than I am. And with AI, nothing can remain the same. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for new technology, new automation, new equipment, and I'll be there on the board, and I'll have my input. So it won't be so different. It's just that it will be somebody with some newer ideas in the foreground rather.
And because of his engineering background, like you said, there is so much happening in that space right now with robotics and artificial intelligence, and there are a whole lot of opportunities to take advantage of.
What a great time to take over.
Indeed. How do you think those things will play a role in Jamaica's manufacturing space in the years to come? Do you feel like we are behind when it comes to adopting technology in manufacturing?
Well, I certainly know that technology is something that's going to be very expensive for manufacturers. No doubt about it, especially in the baking industry. And so it's not going to happen overnight, like maybe in services. That will depend still a lot on AI, and there's not that upfront capital. But it certainly will mean that we can do things more intelligently, more efficiently. We'll have more software to do things differently. So we're very excited about doing all of those things, and we've already started to engage a lot of them.
Okay, I see a lot of people in the house, and people are commenting as well what their favorite HoneyBun products are. Shell says, wish I could get some Easter bun and cheese. I guess where she is, you can't. Camisia says, HoneyBun cheese bread, nothing like it. We've got Phil saying he loves your coconut bun. We've got Ramon, HoneyBun donuts. My kids love your donuts. Unbothered's favorite donuts, of course. Jennifer is hooked on your coconut bun. So yeah, people, HoneyBun is a staple, especially amongst the school-age population, I would say. Learn, Grow, Invest says he loves the continuity plan that was put in place. Wish more companies did this. Absolutely agree. What's your favorite HoneyBun product, Michelle?
Me, I really love the coconut roll too. And I love the chocolate Goldie.
Okay. I like the cinnamon rolls. That's
Yes,
one of my favorites.
that's the most popular one. That's what most people say. But I'll tell you, there's nothing quite like a just finished donut. So at the office, because we can get our donuts hot, we just love to go in the bakery and get a few donuts to have with our coffee. And it's nice and warm because it's just done. So that's a favorite for our in-house staff as well.
Andrew says, just mash down 3 donut, dinner that.
Thanks, Andrew.
Andrew. Oh boy, I'm surprised nobody else said the cinnamon rolls. But all
Me
right,
too.
so the last time you were on, I remember we were talking about Honey Bun was about to break the $1 billion threshold. And
Yes.
now you have, you well past the $1 billion. For the quarter ended December, you brought in just over $1 billion in revenue for a quarter. And for the financial year ended September,
A
you brought in
billion.
almost,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
almost 4 billion for that
Yes.
financial year in revenue. And then you
Yes.
also have 1.7 billion in gross profits. This is a big deal for a company that started as a small family bakery.
Yes, it is. Sometimes I have to remind myself.
That is quite an accomplishment. And, as you retire and you bring this chapter of your life to I can't really say end, because, like you said, you're still going to be there. And as you reflect on your time with Honey Bun, which is how many years, by the way?
It's 43 years.
43 years. Like,
Yes.
what stands out to you bringing this company to a multi-billion-dollar company?
I think what stands out for me, which I didn't understand in the beginning, it was about governance and how that really propels the business. Before we went on the stock exchange, we were already practicing a lot of the governance practices, and we didn't even know that's what we were doing. So we just ran things, regular reporting, having budgets, having an advisory board. So those are the things I think really propels your business.
Yeah, I'd love to hear some of your reflections in running really a Jamaican success story in what Honey Bun has emerged to be over the past 43 years. Those early days, you're a small family bakery. Like you said, governance was important, but really, how do you scale to that level?
So I
43 years is
think
a long
you
time.
need to be able to make sufficient plans. So before the beginning of every year, I would have my annual plans, and I would have them in a format where this is what you're doing for the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. And we knew specifically what our objective was at the end of the year. And so in those days, we really didn't have a strong mission statement, but having a strong mission statement that means something to you, because I formulated many of them when I wanted to change it. And when we came up with lead, achieve, and serve, it hit home right away. Leading through innovation, achieving success for our stakeholders. We were public by then, and serving the greater good. And I think serving the greater good was the one that came closest to my heart. And that was when we started the HoneyBun Foundation. Because after being in business for 43 years, I had learned so much pushing that company to where it is between myself and my husband, that I wanted to share it. I didn't want to die with it and bury it in the grave. So that was when I founded the HoneyBun Foundation, and God has been so good. He has answered all our prayers, and we are now at the foundation serving small and medium-sized companies, not one at a time. We're serving them by developing and documenting business models that we would recommend all small businesses use to grow their company. So it won't be heard just here, Kalilah. People will hear about the HoneyBun Foundation business models for them to succeed in business. And I've already shared too. Well, I
You
haven't, but I've
absolutely,
spoken about the corporate governance, but
yeah.
that's in the background. We achieve that through everything we do with small businesses.
We absolutely love what you have done with the Honey Bun Foundation and what you continue to do and what you mean for small businesses. I have the app. You have to. I need to remind myself to go on the app again
Yes,
and update that
right.
text. It's been over a year since I did that.
I remember when you downloaded our
I
Gap
remember. Yes, I remember that
GAPP,
quite well.
APP. Yes, yes,
Yeah. So it's time to update our performance on the
right.
app.
And I
But
bet you will have gotten a much higher score, Kalilah.
well, I hope so. I hope so because the past couple of years have been quite challenging. 2022,
Mhm.
2023, no,
Yes.
23 and 24 were
Okay.
tough years. And speaking of tough years, you've survived many tough years there at HoneyBun. You've been through the
Yes.
FinSac era, you've been through the recession, you've been through
Yes.
so many
COVID.
things. COVID, oh my gosh, don't remind me of COVID. School was closed, and you
Uh-huh.
have a big audience of school age children.
Right.
Like, what is the key to surviving those difficult times? Because a lot of
Yeah.
businesses, when they're faced with those challenges, they fold. The business
Yeah.
ends.
Yeah. They give up. So I think it's about a mindset. So when there are challenges, there are opportunities lurking in the background. So
Mm.
it's an opportunity to do something different, offer something different, engage different mindset of people. So you have to focus more on what can you do as a result of the challenges, and don't let them kick you down. Don't let them pull you down. I said to a company recently that they had a major problem, and I said, let's break it down. Let us talk about what are the challenges. Break it down. Let's separate the challenges. Sure, it looks like one huge headache to you. So we broke them down into several parts, and I said, okay, let's talk about each part. And so we talked about it. I said, don't make a decision yet, just sit on it, pray about it, and see what you wake up tomorrow morning thinking. And so when we broke down the parts, she called me back and she said, this is what I could do about this, and this is what I could do about that. Treat challenges like that. Don't let them overwhelm you. Think about them in parts. What can I do about this, that, and the other? Think about who you need to engage to discuss those parts of the challenge. That's important. Keep you above board.
I love that. Every crisis presents an opportunity. What was the opportunity that you saw in COVID?
Well, we saw the opportunity to change our product um, offerings, or to, promote, for example, our burger buns a lot more, because, I mean, the school market was for donuts and snacks. And then the hamburger breads and hot dog breads, people were buying those a lot more. And then they were finding out how good they were. And so we targeted different markets. We paid attention to different products, and those were the opportunities for us.
How are you on exports?
Kalilah, we can always be better, because that is something that through the foundation we are trying to lift the awareness, because unless as Jamaicans we're exporting more, we're not going to close the deficit. And we all know how important that is. So with our SMEs that we work with on our advisory committee, it's important to recognize that there's more that you can export than you think. I have a small business who was in one of our training, and he sold a service. And he was like, well, I can't, there's nothing I can export. And let me tell you, when we spoke to him months after, he was having live Zoom meetings. Of course, before COVID, Zoom wasn't much of a thing. He was having live Zoom meetings. So when he normally would have 10 people in a session, he was having 100 people globally from Africa and everywhere else on his Zoom call.
Wow.
So he was exporting, earning foreign exchange.
Yeah, I think a lot of service providers don't realize that they can actually export. I remember going to a DBJ event one time, and they were awarding the previous Ignite grantees and Ignite awarding the top exporters. And the company that won that year was a service provider.
Exactly. You would be surprised. It takes a little thinking, changing your mindset, recognizing that there is something I'm supposed to do. And when you find it, it's going to make a difference, big difference to your company. And we,
Javon wants to know, what about the rollout of gluten-free products?
yes. So that is important, Javon. And we are looking at product development. We already have a few new products to roll out in the market when we move over to our new facility, because we have really maximized our capacity at the current plant. So we couldn't be putting out all the new products that we were developing. Gluten-free is important, but it takes some amount of marketing to the consumer, because if we put it out without the marketing, it stands the chance that it might fail, because it doesn't taste as good as your other bread, but it's healthier. So it's going to have to take some amount of marketing. And we've seen another bakery, at least one or two, put out gluten-free bread, and it hasn't done well. So they take marketing for it to have traction in the market. And once we have the capacity, we will be planning some new products that the market will love.
I think like gluten-free is for a very specific audience that
Yes.
really cares about that. So it's not gonna be as popular as your
Yes.
regular products anyway. So it's
Right.
really targeting certain people. Tony wants to know if you have any vegan versions.
Of the breads,
I suppose so.
well, yes. None of our products are made with meat, but if
But
you're talking,
eggs are in some of them.
okay, yes, eggs are in maybe 50% of our products have eggs. The cakes have eggs and the cinnamon roll have eggs, but all our other bread products don't have eggs.
Okay. So we have, okay. I'm like in the chat. Gibbon he says he would like to import and distribute HoneyBun in St. Lucia. So Gibbon, you need to get in touch with Michelle behind the
Yes.
scenes.
Yes.
Somebody was asking what's the best way to get in touch with you.
Okay, so we have our website, www.honeybunja.com. So you can find people there, email that you can send your questions to.
Okay. Explore Saskatchewan, this person's all the way in Canada, said, yes, you should do gluten-free products. Charles wants to know why you shut down the distribution store in Spanish Town bus terminal, because he loved that place.
A lot of our outlets are not only an opportunity for people to buy wholesale, but a lot of the times it is also a distribution hub. So we have to evaluate each one on the location and the sales. So we might have found a more efficient way to distribute from Spanish Town, and so we might have closed that down to opt for another location.
Ryan wants to know if you have any plans to do an APO for your growth strategies.
That's one option, but it's not the only one. And right now, once we expand the facility, we're going to settle into that and build out from there. And we'll see what we need to do next in our growth strategy. I also mentioned distribution. One of my other sons manages the sales and distribution arm of the business. And the significant thing about HoneyBun too is that we're a family business. And so, my two sons who have been in the business for quite some time have been preparing to take over leadership roles, but they can only take it over if they're qualified. So both Daniel and Dustin, who are in the business, have been growing and learning in the business. And this is something we really recommend that most business do, because we're finding through the foundation that there are lots of businesses that don't have a succession plan. And it's very unfortunate, because when the business does well and the owners get old, they'll have to, some of them are very confused about, how to retire out of the company. So we encourage succession plan. And those people who don't have family businesses, I'm hoping that they have a board of directors or board of advisors who you can start to have the discussion with about how to develop the next line of, whether it's owners, managers, whatever it is very important. It doesn't take a year, it doesn't take a month. For us, it took quite a few years. So Danielle has been in the business, I think, 14 years now. Dustin has been in the business maybe 12 or 13 years. So they've both been in the business for quite some time. So they're quite capable. And that was a part of the plan. Not that we forced them, but we said, work with us and we'll pay you reasonably well, learn the business. And if you don't want to stay, you don't have to. But succession is critical for businesses. I'm seeing it so much every day.
My light is back. Light just cut off in the middle of the show. And
Okay. And
yeah,
here it was going on.
luckily it came back. And right now I'm tethering to my phone. So if my internet is spotty, that's the reason. I think internet is finally back as well. So I'm going to have to take the break, switch back to our regular Wi-Fi. But thanks for staying on, because I wasn't sure what was going to happen just now.
It was very short.
With my light off. I'll take a couple more questions and then we will, wrap this segment. I think you already answered the questions that were on, because I heard you talking just now. So what's next for Michelle Chong?
What is next for Michelle Chong is to continue to lead the foundation. I have so many plans. There's no resting. I mean, I've been heading the foundation with Nashana Lala, or general manager, who does an amazing job. And I'll just do more. This year, we're launching our back office support, which is something I'm very excited about, so that we can give technical assistance to small businesses. So that's where my focus will be. Where I'm personally also looking to invest in more small businesses who have good leaders, who are very strong operationally, to give them the support and assistance, and perhaps to invest in their business so that they can grow as well. So those are the two things that I have 5 grandchildren, so I don't have any time to retire.
A full and busy life. I
Yes.
love that. And viewers, you heard Michelle said that she is looking to invest in small businesses with great potential. So reach out through the HoneyBun Foundation if you have a business and you have a plan. What specifically are you looking for, Michelle? Like, who are the people who should be contacting you, sending you their proposals for investment?
Okay, so in terms of the foundation, we work with most small businesses who show a general understanding of business. For investment, and that's a personal thing, it will be more about people who are passionate about what they're doing, but they also have some good, strong business operational skills. Because I'm not looking for a new business to operate or manage. But if there's someone out there who you can say to them, for example, I have one SME who, when you tell her what she needs to do, she does it, and she phones you and she asks if she must do it like this or that. And immediate results you can see from the little advice. That's what I want. I just want to water plants that grow quickly. I don't want to be belaboring over something. They don't know how to do this. They give you excuses. Don't call me about investing if you're having excuses or blame, or, I'm not into that. I've been there. I still do it. But for investing, I want to work with companies who have leaders who are proactive, passionate, and engaged in their business.
So
and we get to see some of them because they're our SMEs. Some of them are our SMEs.
So when you invest in a company, you're not just giving them money, you're also providing mentorship.
That's correct.
Very, very valuable for any small business, medium-sized business that is seeking to grow and replicate the success of HoneyBun. Thank you so much for joining us, Michelle. We shall be in touch. And Daniel next. We'll have him on the show sometime soon.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Kalilah. Thank you, viewers, all of you.
All the best. So it is time for tonight's poll question. I'm sure you've been following all the developments in the US. The tariffs were on and now they're not, they're on pause. And this has caused a whole lot of volatility in the US stock market. We had stocks falling, like the biggest fall since COVID, and then Trump paused the tariffs, and then they had the biggest rally since I don't even know how long. So you're going to see it in market recap in a minute. The Dow is up like 12%, some really good numbers. Then you had Trump. Some people were saying that Trump was manipulating the market, all kind of stuff. So here's our poll question. How has the volatility in the US markets affected you? Here are your options. A, I've lost a lot of money. B, I've made a lot of money. C, I don't invest in the US, or other. Leave a comment. How has the volatility in the US markets affected you? A, I've lost a lot of money. B, I made a lot of money. C, I don't invest in US markets, or other. Leave a comment. You can take that poll on our YouTube channel, the community tab. You can go over on X, or you can just leave your comment in the chat and let us know how has volatility in the US markets affected you. Up next, we've got your market recap, and our analyst is standing by. Market Recap is brought to you by MyMoneyJA, the official data partner of Money Media. Get 10% off your subscription with the code MONEYMISSION. The JSE Combined Index lost 9,000 points last week. That's about 3%. 126 stocks traded across the main and junior markets for the week ending Friday, April 11, 2025. 39 made gains, 72 lost value, and 15 stayed the same. 1.3 billion shares changed hands on the Jamaican dollar market, valued at $5 billion. TransJam was the week's most traded stock, with 1.3 billion shares changing hands. It started the week at $3.68. Its USD counterpart traded the second most shares. The stock opened Monday up 2%. And Wigton rounded out last week's most traded. Now let's see who had the biggest gains of the week. CAC 2000 was the JSE's top stock, up 32% to open the week at $2.65. JPS 7% had the second biggest gain, up 29%, and Cygnus Credit 10% preference shares rounded out the top stocks, up 19%. On the losing side now, Berger Paints was the week's biggest loser. The stock lost 20% to start the new week at $7.12. Consolidated Bakeries fell 19%, and Medical Disposables and Supplies lost 16% to close out the week at $1.44. Over on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, the composite index was mostly flat last week. Massey was the TTSE's most traded stock. It opened Monday at $3.85 TT. Point Lisa's Industrial Port Development was the market's top gainer, up almost 15% to start the week at $4.02 TT. And on the losing side, Trinidad Cement fell 8% to open Monday at $2.12 TT. Over in the U.S., the Dow Jones was up 6% last week, while the S&P 500 gained 8% and the Nasdaq climbed almost 12%. Motorists scored a win at the pumps last week. The price of 87 gas fell $3.06, while 90 dropped $1.92, and diesel prices were also down $3.06. In foreign exchange trading, it took an average $158.53 Jamaican to purchase $1 last Friday. That's 11 cents less than the week before. $1 Canadian cost an average $113.40 Jamaican. $1 British pound cost $207.94 Jamaican. And you could buy €1 for $178.19 Jamaican on average. Finally, on the crypto markets, Bitcoin prices gained 3% over the past 5 days, trading at $85,206 on Monday, while Ethereum only gained 0.5%, trading at $1,679 on Monday. Market Recap was brought to you by MyMoneyJA, the official data partner of Money Media. Like this show? No, I mean, do you really like this show? Well, support us by making a donation on Patreon. Your support will go a long way in allowing us to continue creating content like this and keep taking stock free for everyone. Go to patreon.com/moneymediaja. The link is in the description. This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, is brought to you by Sagicor Investments.
Disclaimer. This is not intended as financial advice. Please consult a licensed financial advisor before making investment decisions.
Welcome back. Let me take some of your comments before we introduce our analyst. Orlandi says that means there's opportunities for jobs at HoneyBun since they're opening this new factory soon. Moifer says, great company, outstanding management. I'm buying more stocks. Ryan had a question. We'll already planned that, past that. Nicholas said, succession planning is the way to go. Love that. Learn, Grow, Invest says it was great being part of the HoneyBun mentorship program last year. So guys, do not waste this opportunity. You heard Michelle, they do mentorship. They have the HoneyBun Foundation. She is looking to actively invest and mentor companies. Here's some responses now to our poll question. Our poll question was, how has the recent volatility in the US stock market affected you? Very Opulent said B, which is I've made a lot of money. Good for you. Learn, Grow, Invest says I can't complain. Volatility is how money is made, and that's a fact. Jason says I don't invest in the US. Tony says I lost some money. JT also chose A, which is I lost some money. Very Opulent says I made some money on Apple and Google. Good for you. Inga Baby says I live in the USA and I'm buying the dip. Everything's on sale. I'm buying and holding for the long term. Is it still on sale? Because it sounds like the markets have rebounded and are going strong since the tariff reversal. Ingrid says, see, I don't invest in US stocks. All right. So yeah, lots of different responses to what is going on in the US markets. Now back home, we're going to be talking tonight to our analyst from Sagicor Investments. She's Assistant VP at Sagicor, Jodianne Aris. Welcome back, Jodianne.
Hi, Kalilah. Hi, viewers. Thanks for
How you
having
doing?
me. Nice to be here. I was a little shaken because the light went, so I was a little frightened. But we're good.
It went for me too. I was like, uh-oh. But it came back quickly,
Yeah.
fortunately. And
Yeah.
the internet is back up as well. So we're glad to have you on still. So tonight we're talking about Express Catering. Their Q3 results are out. What should we know?
So just a reminder to everyone. So I'll try and share a bit of screen. Hold on a sec. I have no idea if you're seeing. Hold on. All right, so I'll try to share a bit of the screen. So Express Catering, as most of us would be familiar with, actually does operations within the Sangster International Airport. And so your concession stands within that space would be Express Catering that is responsible for providing services and food in that space. So I think I'll try, see if I can, oh no, it won't share. What we're looking at for Express Catering though is it's a company that's highly linked to the movement of traffic, so the movement of persons within the airport. So once you think of Express Catering, you want to think about how is tourism doing, and that factors into the amount of persons that are passing through the airport and that would likely be able to take up some of their services. So when we looked at the numbers that came out, so they were released on the Jamaica Stock Exchange earlier today. So when we looked at those numbers, and bear in mind we haven't gone in full detail because they're still very fresh numbers. We know that revenue pretty much has remained fairly flat. So there is a bit of sluggish growth in revenue. And it's one of the first items that we generally tend to look at when it is that we're assessing companies, which is that revenue item in terms of its performance. And it sometimes gives us, a very wrong picture of everything if it is that we just focus on revenue, because when we drill a little bit further down, we'll see that there's overall improvement in the net profit for this company. And what really has driven that is that they have been able to do some cost containment. So we see where for Express Catering, they have reduced their cost of sales. So that would have fallen year over year, and that would have resulted in an increase in the gross profit. And when you look at gross profit, you don't just want to look at the numbers, you also want to factor in what's the margins like. And this is something that we'd have discussed in COVID, when it is that we saw companies that were reducing some of their costs, and when it is that there are tough times, and then they're started to see an improvement in the margins. I'll try and share, had a little Excel sheet. Let's see if I can present that one. Let's try again. Cheers.
Let me take some comments in the meantime. I see. So Learn, Grow, Invest. By the way, guys, how was your conference this past weekend? I saw some highlights on social media. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend, but big up you for pulling off that conference. As Learn, Grow, Invest says, on that note, waiting for JPS to list. They have preference shares listed, but the big company, ooh, that would be a big one if that ever happens. Have you gotten the document?
Are you seeing? Yes, there we go. All right,
Yeah.
so I have highlighted in green what would have been the margin. So we know that you have a gross profit margin.
You're going to have to zoom in on the parts that you're talking about. There we go.
All right. So when we look at gross profit margin here, that's 71.9%, roughly 72%, compared to year-to-date last year, which was 67.9%. And it seemed like very close numbers, but when you're talking about margins, even decimal places, improvement is really good. So to move from 66.9, or call it 67% to 72% is a really big jump. And a lot of that really came because there was a reduction, as I mentioned, in the cost of sales. So they were able to, even though revenue was just moving up sluggishly by 1.1% year to date, 4.8 Q3 over Q3, when you look at the cost of sales, there was a big dip in terms of about 14% for the year to date. So that's the 9 months ended at the end of February. And once we drill further down, we noticed that
how are they able to reduce cost of sales by that much?
So part of what they would have explained in their discussion is that they were able to look at in terms of their suppliers, was part of it in terms of how it is that they were able to probably negotiate. And so you want to look, as earlier would have discussed with your in your earlier segment when you talked about businesses and management. It's really key that you have an eye on what it is that management is doing, because your business has to survive in both good and bad times, and how it is that they're able to change around and refashion when things get a little bit sticky. You have to realize that comes into play here. And I think they would have, see if I can just touch back on the notes. Should be seen. Let's just see. They would have highlighted in terms of their cost containment measures. So I think when we get a little bit further down, they're able to do some savings in terms of salaries and wages. But they also did a bit of price combination as well as better portion controls, and they were improving the supply chain agreements. And so those would have been what would have helped in terms of the overall performance for the company in terms of an improvement there.
Okay.
But when we also look further in terms of the margins, we notice that you look at even the net profit margin, that's also improved. So it's moving from 11.2% last year to 17% this year. So if you look at that jump in terms of net profit, it's a much different story from what it is that you would have seen when it is that you looked at the revenue, which would have been the top line. So you also always want to factor in what is happening within the company. How are they adjusting to any sort of changes that's happening within the market? And when we look at tourism numbers, so if we looked at last year, there was a travel advisory that was issued. And so we saw a reduction in tourist arrivals. And then later in the year, as the persons, our main source market being the US, persons were really preparing or looking forward to the election. And there was a bit of a wait and see. So persons were really saying, let's see what happens in this election before I make some sort of travel plans. And so we realized that for most of last year, particularly as we got into the summer months and the early part of the winter season, tourist arrivals were on the dip. And that would have been a big factor for, as we mentioned, for a company like Express Catering. It really depends on the movement of persons. And if it is that you're seeing that there is a dip in travel, You could do promotions. There could be work that is done, but that's just the overall nature of what's happening currently in the market. And that would have had an impact in terms of your numbers. So you had to be able to reposition or to fix your business in such a way that you're still able to produce a bottom line that is improving, even though your top line is a little bit on the sluggish side in terms of growth.
Yeah. So for them to have this improvement in the bottom line, it really comes down to how they manage the cost of sales and being able to reduce that.
Right. So I think there were some of the variable costs was a little bit down as well. As I mentioned, they did do a little bit of adjustment to wages and salaries. And so that would have helped. I think they dipped in terms of some of the promotional expenses, Q3 versus this year versus Q3 of prior year. And that would have helped in terms of cost containment. And that's something that I'd highlight for investors to be looking out, particularly as we go into a season where there could be a bit of tough times, as we see for companies, how it is that management is managing or weathering the storms as they come is one of the important gauges that we have to look at when it is that we're looking for companies that we'd like to invest in.
Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to highlight from Express's results?
I think, when we look at the outlook, so when it is that you look at what's likely to happen within the tourism space, it's still going to be a year where there could be a little bit of hands continuing. So there was improvement as it is that we went into the winter tourist season in terms of the pickup of the numbers. But when you look at the information coming out in terms of arrivals for the start of this year so far for Montego Bay, we're noticing that there is a bit of a dip year over year. And so it's going to be, if we use the start of the year as any sort of indication, it's going to be another tough year for the top line for Express Catering. But if it is that they're able to maintain the same margins that they have been doing year to date, and probably see similar sluggish growth in terms of revenue, then it's likely that they could beat the performance for last year financial year. The audited numbers could be much better than last year if it is that they're able to maintain those margins going into Q4, even with sluggish revenue.
We have a couple of questions before we move on to the inflation numbers. Jason, well, this is a comment. Jason says ECL, Express Catering, and Dolphin Cove could see a drop in prices as the tariff wars intensifies. Do you see that having an impact on Express Catering? Because the tariff wars are really about imports into the United States. Express, right. We're looking at travel, tourism industry.
I think it could have an impact in terms of if it is that person's probably delayed travel based on, what it is that they're seeing playing out. So persons could, similar to as we mentioned, when it is that persons were leading up to the election, there was a bit of a wait and see. So persons are really waiting to see what is likely to happen before it is that they concretize their travel plans. You could see a bit of a shift there in terms of persons deciding whether or not they would make travel, and how it is that they, just a general level of uncertainty sometimes can impact your decision to travel or how it is that you do spend in terms of travel. So it could be a factor.
Earl wants to know who or what makes up the related party transaction in the balance sheet, and why is it so high? Each year it climbs. Is there a disclosure on that? Does it say?
I think there would be one, but I think the related party, as in this case, Express Catering, is the Margarita Limited. That company is highly related to this one. So that would largely, I think, depend by what causes that movement in terms of related party expenses or related party holdings.
Okay, let's move on to inflation. The new inflation numbers were just announced. We're at precisely 5%, which is exactly the BOJ's target. And this is the 7th month that they've been able to hit their target. So do you think that this is going to influence the BOJ to drop interest rates, or because they've hit that sweet spot, you think this is where it should stay? Interest rates should just stay the same because they've been at 6% for a few months now.
Right. So, I mean, as I mentioned, that target is 4 to 6% that the BOJ wants inflation to fall within. And it has been within that 4 to 6% band for quite a bit of time. And we do continue to see where the BOJ is holding. We have another month or so to go. I think the next meeting for the BOJ is in May, at about towards the latter part of May. So we'll be able to factor in as well as the April inflation numbers before it is that they have to make a decision. What it factors into their decision to hold, as they have been highlighting, is that there is general uncertainty in the market, and those uncertainties could have impact for inflation. And because that could have impact for inflation, they're really doing a watch and see to see what happens. So how it is that a lot of the international decisions play out will have an impact as to whether or not it is that the BOJ decides to move the policy rate.
Yeah, a lot going on. And then I just saw a comment come on screen that the hurricane season is coming up. A whole half of the year, June to November, June to
Yes.
November.
Well,
hurricane
actually,
season,
I think
June to
it's
November.
actually extended where once you get into December, they're now saying you could have hurricanes or active systems in December. So I mean, you probably can't say it's the full calendar year.
We've seen in recent times hurricanes outside of the hurricane season. And
Yes.
also remember Beryl was a July hurricane, category 4, one of the earliest
Right. So
big
it's more
hurricanes.
frequency, and I think the intensity is also much greater than we have been seeing.
Climate change is real. I have a question here from Shane. Shane wants to know, why is 4 to 6% or 5% inflation target good? Isn't that too high?
So one of the things is that prices generally move upwards over time. So you don't want to be in a situation where there is no upward movement in prices generally. So what they tend to set is what is considered a fair banding, which it is that they'd like to see inflation to make sure that there is stability within the market. So one of the things for the target is to help in terms of planning. So companies as well as individuals plan for the year ahead. So when it is that you have an idea of where it is that inflation is likely to fall, then you can better make some of those planning going forward. So it's really not just in terms of where it is that you want to see the market, but also to help in terms of some sort of stability in terms of how market perform, how it is that persons are able to plan. And so a 4 to 6 really represents the general target. So that would have factored in how it is that inflation would have moved in prior years. So they would have looked at historical information on inflation. They'd look at our typical market, considering that we are somewhat price takers in quite a bit of products that we import. Then they would have factored in those factors to determine a favorable band that they'd want to see inflation fall into. But there is generally a need for some upward movement in price within the economy. And you also want to remember as an individual that your salary is a price. And so if there's no upward movement in prices, then your salary also stays, flat. So you want to consider that your salary is also a price.
I remember asking that question a few years ago when the BOJ initially launched their inflation targeting regime, because it really depends on your economic circumstances, because 5% in the US would be considered high. They're looking at, I think, probably like the 2% range for targeting.
It's around 2%.
But for us, as an emerging economy seeking growth, 5% is kind of the sweet spot for where they want it to be. I remember talking to Richard Biles. Was it Richard Biles then? Was he already? I think he was already central bank. No, it was Brian Winter. Brian Winter was the central bank governor at the time that they launched the targeting regime, and he, explained all of that as to why 5% is ideal for an economy like us. Remember, we also had the target for 5 and 4. Looking to achieve 5% growth in 4 years. 4 years gone, long time, and we still haven't achieved that. But I see in the comments as well some people saying 5% is a good number, because keep in mind, how much do you want to grow by? Do you, like you mentioned, Jodianne, if your salary is 100,000 this year, you want it to be 105,000 next year, that's inflation. That's a rise in the cost to employers, as a rise in the cost of goods and services. So yeah, lots of reasons for the 5% number.
Yeah, but I mean, it's generally good to see that there is some amount of stability in terms of the numbers. So when it is that you're looking at the numbers, outside of just seeing it, whether it is within the ban and the BOJ movement, it also helps in terms of for companies to know that there's a general level of stability. As I said, it helps in terms of how it is that you plan going forward, when it is that you're preparing a business plan or you're doing a budget for the following year to make sure, in terms of that variance, when you look at actual versus planned, it reduces that. So it helps very much in terms of your planning and how it is that you prepare for going forward. And I think for us as analysts, when it is that we're looking in terms of long-term growth rates, when it is that we're doing projections for companies, having a general idea of where it is that inflation is likely to fall or seeing a general level of stability helps in terms of how it is that we work towards preparing those projections and doing our evaluations.
Jason says BOJ may be wise to delay dropping the rates further. Do you agree with that?
Well, we'll have to wait and see. There's another month of data that they'll be looking at, as well as the uncertainty within the international market. So we'd want to see how a lot of that plays out, and that will inform how it is that they, the decisions that they make. I think part of what general markets would want, and particularly when you look at the US, there's a general push or from the investment public, for a cut in rates. So when you look at where it is that they're projecting rates to be towards the end of the year in terms of market expectation, you're seeing that is quite a bit of an aggressive reduction. And, that leads into the fact that it helps to support economic activity. So the lower your rate is the more likely that persons are going to borrow. It stimulates activity. So from that end, there is a general wanting to see a reduction in the rates. But we do have to factor in that inflation. As I mentioned, we want it to be something that is fairly stable and predictable. And if there is going to be anything that could have an impact in terms of bringing back inflation outside of the band, particularly above the upper end, then the BOJ would be very cautious in order to remain as a space where they're likely to be having rates high, so that they could have some amount of containment if it is that situation should arise.
A question from Desmond. He says, but would your salary need to increase if other costs aren't?
Well, I think in terms of generally just prices on a whole. So generally prices tend to go up, and you do not necessarily want to be in a situation where prices are going down, because if prices are going down, still on a human level, on a psychological level, even if you may require less funds to purchase the same amount of goods, nobody really wants to see their inputs or their income going down. And so when you think of it probably from the flip side, then it probably seems a little bit more intuitive in terms of if it is that, the cost of things are to go down, then it means that your salary moves downwards is not necessarily a good on a psychological level. And so in terms of prices going downwards, that's not really something that you particularly want to factor in as well in your economy. So there is a general uptick in prices that is generally needed.
Lots to think about. Thank you so much for your expert analysis, Jodianne.
No problem.
Great having you. We'll take our final break and come back with your comments. This section of Taking Stock, The Analysts, was brought to you by Sagicor Investments. 12 months. That's all it takes to transform your finances with Money Mission Premium. For the next year, I'll guide you on the process to take your finances to the next level. You'll get my premium courses, monthly mentorship, and a great community of peers to help you on your journey. Go to moneymissionja.com. Let's get this money. Welcome back. Let's see what we have here in the comments. Learn, Grow, Invest says the conference was amazing. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for all your support. The feedback has been great from all attendees, sponsors, etc. I'm really happy to hear that. Desmond agreeing. So Desmond attended. Desmond says it was great. Happy to hear that, Desmond. Sherwayne wants me to interview the CEO of JFP. What's going on with JFP, Sherwayne? I think I saw a dip in the stock price. I feel like I was looking at it recently, but tell me, what would you want me to ask the CEO of JFP? Lavaine says, a lot of times we chastise the BOJ, but we must commend them on the achievements so far. Things have been relatively stable, especially if we compare to a lot of other countries. That's so true. That's so true. I mean, they've taken us through COVID. It's taken us through a very tumultuous time over the past 5 years, and we have indeed had relative stability. Desmond says, I think one main point we should consider is that there will always be inflation. It may be constant, but it's still inflation. Shell, Shell say, oh, what does mana pre? Of course, people want more money regardless if price goes up. People not refusing more money. Learn, Grow, Invest says, investors expect companies to make more money as well. Remember, so more money through growth, more money through charging more for some products. And they also responding to Desmond saying, it's very unlikely all costs remain static. Each individual has a lot of expenses, especially those of us with children. Tell me about it. The children comment, especially every week at least. It is something new that you have to buy for these kids. Oh my goodness! Tomorrow, this week they had sports day, so I had to buy cheerleading costume for Nerisi. Tomorrow is kite day. So I need to get kites for them. Back in the day, we'd make our kites. These days, busy moms go spontaneous or buy a kite somewhere. It's just always something. And then school fees are going to be due for next term because school's going on break. It's just always, my son just got new school shoes and he decides that he wants to kick rocks in his new school shoes. And now the shoes that he just got less than a month ago mash up. Kids, they say life is better with them. It is though, it is, but gosh, they are expensive. They are expensive. Okay, what other comments do we have here? Jason says, time to bring those average prices down. Unbothered says his eyes are on dollar stock. LGI, we have 2 children now, everything double. Ain't that a fact? Let's see, Lanesra, oh, so speaking of JFP, having the JFP CEO on, yes, Smetri, JFP, he is the president of PSOJ, so we could hear his views on the tariff war, on impact on Jamaican companies. That's a good idea. We'll keep that in mind. We'll write that down. We haven't had PSOJ on in quite some time. I think JMEA would be good to have on, manufacturers and exporters, because that tariff particularly impacts our exporters who are trying to get into the US markets. That's a good idea. Sherwin wants me to ask them what moves or strategies that are implemented to improve business and stock price, propelling it above $3. Who else do we have? Shell says children equals expenses. Raquel says the joy and the pain. Lavaine says it's funny because the more money we make, the more we spend. As such, the higher inflations get. As such, we ask for more money. It is a cycle. Shell says, I thought we were minimizing expenses. Jason said, kite day, me born in the wrong generation. All I remember is jeans day. Yeah, my kids' school have day for everything. They have pajama day, kite day, sports day. Career day is coming up. I need to get their outfits for career day. All kind of thing. Dress like your favorite superhero day. Listen, I saw a TikTok recently, spend money day. That's so true. I saw a TikTok recently. Somebody was looking at the prices for prep schools. Trust me when I say it is not cheap. It is not cheap. And that's school fees, but all these other miscellaneous things, gosh, they add up every day. And then because we had sports day today, of course, my kid asked me for money because they're going to be snacks and different things on sale at sports day. You can't go sports day broke. Next thing, she asked me for a cup. It's a very nice cup. It's a Hello Kitty cup, right? And she said she wanted this cup for her birthday, and I got her this lovely cup. Now, it happens to be shaped like a Stanley cup. And I thought to myself, somebody is going to say that this is a fake Stanley. I need to prepare her for that fact that somebody's going to, but she don't know about what Stanley Cup is and about brands and stuff. She just thought it was a very nice, she just liked Hello Kitty. She wants the cup. But she did remark that it's a Hello Kitty Stanley Cup. And I had to tell her, no, it's not a Stanley Cup. It's just a Hello Kitty cup. Yesterday, she comes home. Somebody teased her that the cup is a fake Stanley Cup. So all the consumerism, all the materialism, and next thing she's going to ask me is she wants a real Stanley Cup. She didn't ask me that, though. Fortunately, she's still quite happy with her Hello Kitty cup, but she said it hurt her feelings. But this is the start of it. She's 7 years old, and the materialistic side the materialistic, consumeristic, is that a word? Influences, capitalistic influences are already exerting themselves on my 7-year-old to have this name brand item, even though she's quite happy with her Hello Kitty cup. I always say the older kids get, people say that babies are expensive. Babies are fairly cheap, to be quite frank. The older they get, the more expensive they get. The more expensive their tastes become as their taste buds mature. When my oldest was young, I remember one time I asked her what she wants for her birthday to eat. She said fried chicken. That was her favorite food at the time. Easy peasy. Now if I ask her, it is either steak or sushi. The older they get, the more expensive they get. You think prep school is expensive? Wait till you have to pay for university fees. Also very expensive. So yeah, those prices, the costs go up the older they get. Wait till you have an adult child who's getting married and you, as the dad, need to pay for the wedding. They never quite leave your pocket. I can tell you that for sure. Natoya says Hello Kitty is name brand too. Yeah, it is. I don't know if it's the official Hello Kitty. We got it from Amazon. Earl says, wait till she reach teenager. Teenagers can eat. Remember, I have a 22-year-old. They go through that phase, especially teenage boys. They go through that phase where they're just hungry all the time. I'm like, didn't you just eat? And here they are hungry again. RR says she wants a Tesla to drop her to school. I remember when my oldest as well was in high school. She used to make me feel broke all the time. She used to make me feel so broke because she went to a prominent prep school and there are a lot of wealthy children at that school. And I would pull up in my little Nissan March and I was fine with it, but she's comparing herself to families that, part of the 13 families. I'm like, you hear what their last name is? Losushan. You hear what my name is? Reynolds, at the time Enriquez, and it's not even the expensive one with the H. It's Enriquez with an E, ends with a Z. So, oh boy, this is a whole other conversation that we need to have. David says that's why I invest the money for them. Bright strategy, David. Raquel says, do we pay for weddings still? Weddings are getting smaller and smaller, by the way. Let's say Christopher says daughters never leave the pocket, but sons are a different case. Depends. My brother is still at home and he's 37. My brother is still at home. So it goes. It really depends on your situation. So yeah, I enjoy having this little conversation with you. Like I said, there will be no taking stock next week. I know you're going to miss us, but we're taking our Easter break next week. So there's no show next week. We will be back on April 29th. So just remember, don't tune in. If you do and you're wondering where we are, that's what happened. No taking stock next week. We're taking our Easter break. On May 7, I have an event coming up. I told you about it last week. We're going to start promoting it probably next week. That is going to be at the AC Hotel. The venue is confirmed now. The AC Hotel on May 7. You will, hopefully you're subscribed to the email. If you're not, go to getmoneynews.com so that you can be on the email and you get that invitation. You're going to have to RSVP to get on the list because there is limited space, but it will be at the AC Hotel on May 7. I think it's at 7 p.m. And I'm doing quite a few things. I'm doing Money Mission Live. So I will have my signature talk. We're also launching the new Money Mission workbook and the updated Investing for Beginners course, among other things. And I have a couple of people to introduce you to as well. So a lot of things, a lot of work coming up for me in the next couple of weeks. And I'm hoping to see you in person live on May 7 at the AC Hotel, those of you who can make it. Thank you so much for tuning in yet another week. It has been my pleasure serving you. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share this video with a friend, let them know that Taking Stock is on and popping because we want to help people learn about money. We want to all get this money together, right? I'm not mean with the information. I'm not stingy with information. We're sharing it. So looking forward to seeing you when we come back. O'Shane says, Happy Easter. Nicholas says he confirmed already. Great, Nick. Well, I haven't sent out the invitation yet, Nick. So how you confirm and we don't send out the thing yet? Soon. Look out for the email. CR7 complaining that I choose some people comment and pass. Some people are not important. I didn't see a comment from you earlier. I didn't see. Shell says it's the exact opposite. Boys stay at home investing, stay at home living off their mother. So it goes sometimes. Happy holidays, guys. Yeah. Enjoy your Easter weekend, your Easter week, everything that's coming up, and stay safe, especially on the roads, because you know how it goes when you have these long holiday weekends. A lot of crazy driving on the road. So stay safe, guys. I will see you again on the 29th and then in person on May 7th. That's it for tonight's show. Thanks so much to our hardworking production team. Thanks to you for tuning in. And of course, let's get this money.